Welcome along then to the LitFest channel here on Emirates, where we get the opportunity to meet and chat to some of the authors who appeared and starred at the recent Emirates Festival of Literature back in February of 2022. Now, maybe you were lucky enough to attend the festival and meet the authors in person, but if not, worry not. Don't worry, because many will be joining us here today on Emirates. Authors like my first guest this morning, Alka Josh, who has followed up her first book, The Henna Artist, with a brand new novel, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, that she's been telling everyone about down here at the LitFest. Alka was born in India but moved to the United States at the age of 9. Alka, I can't thank you enough for joining us and kicking off our morning here in Dubai. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. It's been lovely. This is my first trip to Dubai. I had no idea what to expect, and I've been so pleasantly surprised at how developed and modern everything is. It's fabulous.
The Dubai experience, I mean, you get invites left, right and centre to come and appear at literature festivals the world over. What sort of, to coin a phrase, jumped off the page for you about Dubai, and what convinced you to come over?
I think it was because they have such a passion about literature. They have such a passion about wanting the whole world to be exposed to diverse literature. And I think it's one of the most diverse author panels that I have ever seen. So yeah, I think that that was a lot of it. And it was just this sort of wonderful organization with the entire staff and everybody welcoming, and you know, my publisher saying we only choose one author from our list to be invited, and we would like to ask you. What an honor that was.
Indeed. I mean, the festival's better for having you here, that's for sure.
Thank you.
The city's better for having Alka here at the moment as well. But I'm interested to know, I mean, in terms of the scene, the literature festival scene, I mean, what's the word about Dubai as well? Is it something that goes around, have you done Dubai yet? Have you done Dubai yet? Is that something that, that goes around the scene or not?
I know that Dubai is very popular among tourists. Yeah. So I have been hearing from friends who have been here and they said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going. I wish I were going with you. I wish I were going in your suitcase. You know, I wish I were going back. So I know that the buzz about Dubai is huge. You know, in terms of literature, I don't know, but definitely, you know, in terms of people who have been to this fabulous part of the world, they were very excited for me to go.
Listen, let's jump into your sessions here. They've been keeping you busy down here in Dubai. The first one was, of course, talking about The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. What was the reaction like from the audience here, and what did you take away from that session?
I was so pleasantly surprised at how everybody has been very receptive about both novels. Some people have read the second novel and then go back and read the first novel. Some people have read the first one and then go and read the second one. So it's been really fascinating to me to have people from all over the world who are here who have read the novel, either in their own language or in the English language. And as you know, The Henna Artist was translated into 26 languages, and The Secret Keeper of Jaipur is not far behind, having just come out, I think, about 7 months ago. So the reception was amazing. I was so, it was so heartwarming to have so many people say, I love the novel, I love these characters, I don't want them to go away. You're writing a third novel? Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Let's go to the process. If we can go back to the beginning, the writing process, if you like, of The Henna Artist, which needs little introduction. New York bestseller, known and loved the world over. Is it fair to say it was a bit of a labour of love as well?
It was an incredible labor of love. It took me 10 years and 30 drafts to complete The Henna Artist. And I think the whole time that I was working on it, what I really wanted was to thank my mother for this incredible, I think, independent life that she has given me, regardless of the fact that she was raised in a very conventional way, with an arranged marriage, with 3 children to look after, with a husband and his whole family and her whole family to look after. And I don't think that she had the opportunity to have a life of her own the way that she always told me I would have. She would never interfere with any of the decisions that I would make about my life. And so I have lived all over the world. I have done all kinds of different things. I have chosen my careers and left a career and started another. And so I thought, you know, I just want to thank my mother in a way that will immortalize her. And so at the same time that I was thinking all this, I had started working on my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. And I thought, what if I could create a character who would have my mother live the life that I think she would have liked to live as well. So that's where Lakshmi, the henna artist, was born. And Lakshmi becomes a kind of henna artist who forges a life of her very own. And I said to my mother, Mom, I'm writing this book for you, and you are Lakshmi. And I don't think that she was incredibly impressed by that. I think she was like, oh, okay. She just kind of took it in her stride, like, yeah, okay.
In terms of the writing process, you mentioned the decade that it took to publish the first book, and I read about you and your approach to writing. Looking at scene by scene almost, and we'll move on to Netflix and serialization of books a little later on. But in terms of that, is that the way that you visualize a book, or again, has your process changed with the second book and now, of course, the third?
Not at all. So keep in mind that I spent about 25 years doing advertising. Yeah. And when you do advertising and you're writing a 30-second commercial or you're writing a 1-minute commercial, you're really writing a scene. And you're writing a scene and very efficiently trying to communicate to the audience, here's what's happening in this scene, here's why it's important, here is the product or service that we're trying to sell. And so for me, it comes very naturally to think in scenes. And I do love scenes. I love the idea of coming into the middle of a scene, trying to figure out what is going on with all the players in that scene, trying to figure out what each person is trying to get from another person, and how are they going to go about getting it. I just find that whole thing fascinating. So for me, it's always been about visualizing a scene first, visualizing all the contents of the scene, whether it's furniture, upholstery, the wallpaper in the room, the orchid, the kind of clothing that people are wearing. These kinds of things are very important for me to first visualize, and then I have the people in the scene start talking to one another, and I hear what they're saying, and then I think, hey, maybe I don't like the way that they just said that. Maybe there's a more dramatic way to say it, and how would they do that? So then I have them go back to their places, and just like a movie director might, and then I say, okay, let's start again. And so they go back and do that. And it's not until I feel that the scene is complete and it's dramatic and it's the way that it feels comfortable for me that I start writing it down on paper. That's just the way I compose all of the novels.
So, I'm so glad that you sort of brought up the idea of the role of a movie director or a TV producer or a TV director these days as well. And obviously you've had huge success as a published author, but equally as much interest being generated by TV companies going, you know what, these are such visual beauties, we need to get these onto screen as well. Is that part of sort of the modern writing process, do you think? Because when I was growing up, obviously, TV series weren't sort of thought about in that sense. Do sort of authors go into the game now to try and get material onto TV, or is that the wrong approach these days?
I don't know whether it's the wrong approach, and I think maybe some authors do that. I know that I don't do that.
Yeah.
No, I really am trying to get these characters into a place, into a situation where they have some kind of conflict, and they are trying to get through that conflict. They're trying to get over an obstacle. They're trying to get to the goal. And every single one of my characters has an intention. That's very important for all writers, to have their main characters have a goal, something that they're working towards. It's very important. And so when I start composing, I'm not thinking about, is there a TV or a movie scene that this could be a part of. I think that's just the way I think because of my advertising background. I can actually see it happening. And so that's what I write down on paper. And then when the TV companies and the movie companies started calling, that's exactly what they said. They said, the writing itself lends itself to screenwriting. It feels like you've already designed the sets for us and what people are wearing, and so it just is a natural for us to go forward with this. I was completely surprised when they started calling.
It's nice though, isn't it? I
Yes.
mean, it's nice to get that sort of A, recognition, but B, it must be nice for an author these days to know that there is the ability to see this labour of love that we've just talked about go to the next chapter almost.
Yes, and the TV production. So the Henna Artist is going to be a TV series, and it is going to be produced by Netflix.
Yeah.
And the producers, Michael Edelstein, Frida Pinto, the actress, and Miramax TV, they are all in the business also of producing a labor of love. So it takes time to produce a TV series, as you know. And first the episodes must be written, and then they must be vetted, and then actors have to be assigned, and then, you know, the scripts keep being reworked and reworked and reworked, and then the crew is assigned, and then locations are scouted. So it's a long process. And I think that you have to love what you're doing in order to follow through with any kind of narrative that you bought as an option and produce it for TV or the movies.
And is that a process that you will be part of? Is that a process that you would look forward to being part of?
I am a part of the production in the sense that I am an executive producer, and I get to look at the scripts, and I get to give my notes on the scripts, but I don't think they have to listen to me or do anything I say. And I think for the first go around on this, I really wanted to experience what it's like to be behind the scenes and watch the whole production roll out. And hopefully I will be there at the time of filming, and I'll have a chance to see you know, how it's all coming together. So that's going to be very exciting for me. I can't wait to see what they do with the TV series. One of the first things that they asked me is, they said, now Alka, you understand that you have written a novel. There's a lot of interior dialogue with your characters in this novel. And what's going to happen is that when we turn it into an 8 sessions TV series, an 8 episodic TV series, we're going to have to expand the role of the characters. We're going to have to expand the scenes. We're going to have to add some scenes and maybe even add some characters. How are you feeling about that? I said, you know what, I'm a big girl. I have been in the working world for a really long time, and I know that sometimes when you start with one idea, it doesn't always look the same when you get to the other end. So I said, I'll just be curious to know how you convert this into a production.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so exciting, so exciting. I want to talk about book clubs, if I can, because a lot is made about the fact that your first book, The Henna Artist, was picked up by Reese Witherspoon for her Hello Sunshine Book Club. A, what was your reaction to that in the first place? And B, what's your opinion on book clubs at the moment? Because we hear so much about book clubs, and yet here I'm talking to you about your work. So why am I talking about Reese and her book club as well? Are they important to authors these days?
They are incredibly important. What Reese Witherspoon did in 2017 when she started Hello Sunshine, I think is nothing short of a miracle.
Really?
She provided a platform just for female authors. That had never been done before. She decided that there were a lot of female authors she enjoyed reading and that did not get the kind of promotional dollars and the publicity that a lot of male authors did. And so she decided that she would form this book club just to give us a platform to talk about our books, if she liked our books. And so I think in 4 short years, she has made the careers of so many of us, a lot of debut authors in particular, but also authors that were well established, and then, you know, she picked their next books that they put out. And I just think that to my dying day, I will owe Reese Witherspoon a huge thanks of gratitude. I mean, just an amazing thing that she did. The reason that book clubs are important is because, number one, they provide an outlet for people to get together and talk about the books, talk about why the book felt important to them, talk about why the characters were so interesting that they didn't want to let go of the book. So that's one thing that happens. The other thing is that I think it provides us authors an opportunity to talk to readers about our books. So we have the opportunity to say, hey, what did you think of this character? And did you find the ending believable? And, they'll ask us all kinds of questions that aren't answered in the narrative itself. So to date, I have done 680 book clubs since the release of The Henna Artist less than 2 years ago. And these are book clubs all over the world. So, not only does it help them feel that they are relating to an author about the work, but I feel so close to my readers. And I feel finally in my life as if I've found my tribe. I think for so many years, I felt like I didn't know where I belonged. I am Indian by birth, but I am an immigrant to the United States and raised largely in the United States. I have lived in Italy, I have lived in France. I have, been in contact with lots of people around the world. And I think I always thought, where's the missing piece? Where do I belong? I'm not sure quite where I belong. And now I know I belong to this group of readers who wants to know about the world. I belong to a group of readers who is interested in culture, who is interested in expanding their knowledge about cultures, and is very interested in even bettering their impression of another culture, or even correcting a misunderstanding about that culture.
Something else I just want to throw into the mix about that as well, and as the father of 3 teenage kids, and I've gone through that sort of process where, reading's not cool, especially in this digital age that we live in. So much pressure for kids to consume content by other means rather than picking up a book, be it electronic or otherwise. Yeah. To my mind, though, book clubs seem to have made reading cool again in many ways.
Yes.
Is that fair?
I think that is totally fair. And I think that what reading does for you is it allows your imagination to fill in the gaps that aren't on the page. So you can imagine what those characters look like. You may read on the page that they have black hair and that they like to eat oatmeal in the morning or whatever, but you can fill in the gaps after that. Like, oh, I think they probably like to listen to these kinds of songs, or read those kinds of books, or play this kind of game. And I think that it just develops your imagination in a way that it developed mine. Because of course, I started out life being a huge reader. And I just love getting lost in books. One other thing I have to say, and that is really about the pandemic itself. Yeah. Both my books were released during the pandemic. And what I hear from readers is that the books allowed them to imagine a world and to escape into a world that was completely different from what they were experiencing locked up at home. And I think that this is very important about books. If you are not comfortable in the situation that you're in, or if you are wanting to know about the world but you can't travel to that part of the world, you can escape there through a book very easily. And that's what a lot of my readers have told me. Oh my gosh, I got lost in The Henna Artist, I got lost in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, and I just really felt like I was there. And I didn't want to turn the page and close the book because then I wouldn't be there anymore. You
mentioned the 2 books there that you get lost in as well. Can we talk trilogy now as well, the Jaipur trilogy as it's being called? Did you set out to write a trilogy or not?
Absolutely not. I started out to write that story about this alternate life that my mother could have had in Lakshmi. And then after I was done with that, I started to write something totally different about a Hungarian Indian artist who had lived in the 1920s and 30s. And Malik, one of the characters from the first book, just kept hammering at me saying, you've got all of those pages that didn't make it into the first book, and they're about me, and they're about my future, and I really want you to tell that story. I actually had to set the first project aside and start writing his story because he would not leave me alone. And now I understand what writers mean when they say that the characters come to life in their imagination, so much so that it feels like they are sitting down to breakfast with them. They are in the shower with them. They are, going to bed with them. And these characters, take on a life of their own. So I started writing Malik's story. When I finished The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, I thought, oh, I've forgotten about Radha in here. I cannot shoehorn her into this story that is really largely about Malik and Lakshmi. So I thought, okay, now I need to write a 3rd book that's going to be about Radha, or my readers are going to say, what about Radha? What happened to her? Did you forget about her? And so that's when I started writing book number 3. And because I had already written her future in the first book, which did not actually make it into the pages of the book that was published, I thought, okay, I already know her future. She's in Paris. It's 1974. She is married to a Parisian. She has 2 small girls, and she's a perfumer. What better place to be a perfumer than Paris? So I said to my publisher, I need to go to Paris in order to do this in order to do the research. And I think, let that be a note to future writers. If you want your setting to be exotic and you want to go visit it, go ahead. Tell your editors and your publishers that you need to go. So, but of course, COVID was upon us, and I couldn't travel until last fall. Then I finally got to go to Paris, and I had set up all these appointments with perfumers and perfume houses and factories that made perfume. And I got to know this whole wealth of other, information and people. And so those I've incorporated into book number 3, which should be coming out in early 2023.
And in terms of the writing process, a lot of authors talk about how cathartic it is, etc. We've talked about, the first book and the 10 years it took for that. Are you getting into a groove now as well? Are you finding the process has got quicker for you?
Yes, because the first book, you're really learning how to write, and you're learning the mistakes that you're making, and you're learning how to not make them again. So the first book is really all about learning. And I think that Malcolm Gladwell said in his book, Blink, it takes 10,000 hours to become good at anything. Maybe that's been disproven, but I do think that it takes a lot of time to get good at anything. So let's say that I were a young writer. I were writing at 20 years of age. I was probably writing since I was 2 or 3 years old, as soon as I could hold a pencil. I didn't start writing until the 50s, and so it's been 10 years, and it took me that long to just learn how to write a novel and to sustain interest over 300 to 400 pages. Now I understand what that's all about. I understand how to communicate the feelings of a character throughout the book, and so that's what I've been able to do with book number 2. Now, keep in mind, Tom, that the trilogy means that I have the same characters carried throughout books number 2 and 3,
yes.
which means I already know what these characters think and feel. Yeah. So now all I have to think about is the plot. So that makes it a little bit easier too. Book number 2, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, only took me 2 years, and the second book will only take me 2 years as well.
Extraordinary. Just in terms of timelines, Alka, obviously we're against time at the moment, but when can fans expect the third in the trilogy?
So the third will come out in early 2023, right around the time that I think that Netflix series should be streaming. So yeah, it'll be kind of cool. And I'm hoping that we will maybe even come out with a perfume, Radha's perfume, that might work with book number 3.
Perfect ending there. Listen, let's bring it back to Dubai just to wrap things up if we can, because I love the fact that not only did you talk about The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, but you were also invited to sit on a panel yesterday, in fact, from when we are recording this interview, with a very simple question of how to write a bestseller. There we are. There's the $1 million question, isn't it? So, Alka, would you mind speaking to 400 people in a room about how to write a bestseller? Sure, no problem at all.
Yeah, it only takes an hour.
It's fine. How was that session?
Oh, it was wonderful. And people asked the most interesting questions. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who want to write. And I want to encourage anybody who wants to write can. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what level of education you've had about writing. If you want to write, if you have passion for a story that you want to tell, memoir, nonfiction, fiction, this is your time. Publishers are hungry for anything that speaks of an experience that a lot of people have not had before, a culture that a lot of people are not familiar with, maybe a time period that people are not familiar with. So I think that the time is ripe for anybody who wants to write about any of those kinds of things to get the work out there. And of course, to take the writing classes and find the really good mentors that they can so that their writing can just sing. One of the things I was told as a debut author is, you better make that first book a bestseller, because if you don't, you will never get a second book or a third book contract. I took that to heart, didn't I?
Didn't you just? That's for sure. The proof is well and truly in the pudding there. We often, with sessions like that, you often think of literature festivals about people coming to learn something new, to further their horizons. From an author's point of view, is it also a sort of learning process for you, given the fact that you interact with so many other authors in what is a very individual discipline, writing one's book? But then you get to an event like this and you get to sit on stage and hang out with others. Is it a learning process?
It is a learning process. And I think that one of the things you learn from other writers is the business of being an author.
Okay.
There's a lot of that you can learn. And, currently I was tapped to be a co-host for a Nashville Public Television show called A Word on Words. And my co-host, J.T. Ellison, another author, she has become my mentor now. I call her when I want to ask her about taxes, about how to deal with people who are sending me their manuscripts, and how do I politely say, I don't have time to read everybody's manuscripts who is just sending them to me blind. There are all kinds of things that I tap other authors for now, and they have become my friends, my mentors. I think those are the kinds of things that I really look forward to when I talk to other authors. It's really a lovely thing.
You have been one of the stars of the show, it goes without saying.
Oh, you're so nice to say that.
No, you have. Everyone's been talking about Alka. Everyone's been talking about your sessions and things like that. So it's been so cool to have you here.
Oh, can I also tell you, Tom, I had a chance to speak to these
Ooh,
students.
okay.
And to them, I spoke about why historical fiction has become so popular, and why women, when they write historical fiction, are actually bringing to light a lot of women's history that has been left out of textbooks, that has been left out of many of the pages that people study. Because I think that, history was largely written by men, and women just got left out of the mix because they weren't in battles and, all kinds of political shenanigans that are going on.
Yeah.
So women are taking it upon themselves to fill in those missing gaps of history. And it was fascinating to talk to the students, largely female, who came to listen, and both in Dubai, and then it was streamed in Abu Dhabi as well. And, I look forward to getting their follow-up questions and anything else that they want to ask me. So I think this region is just so focused on finding out about good literature, about what it means to write, about the experience of being somebody in this world, of being somebody from another culture in another culture. So I think all of these things are really coming into play. I have just had an amazing time here.
Will you come back?
Yes, absolutely.
The beginning of next year is going to be a busy one for you, though, isn't it, next year? What with the perfumes and the TV series and the new book, etc. Maybe a bit of Dubai at the same time, who knows? Listen, last one. We've talked a lot about the pandemic. It is the elephant in the room at the moment, isn't it? Is it not? How nice is it to get back out on the road and get back to see your fans face to face?
It's wonderful to actually see people when they come up for book signings, and they tell me why the books matter to them, why the characters resonated with them, why they want to become writers themselves. So I get to hear that one-on-one. It is so different from hearing it on a Zoom screen or just hearing it on the phone or something like that. So it's been just wonderful to get all of that energy from audiences. I get a lot of energy from audiences, and so for me to be able to do that one-on-one with people is amazing.
Talking of one-on-ones, I couldn't have thought of a nicer way to spend my Sunday morning than one-on-one with you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us on the channel.
Tom.
Thanks for being here in Dubai. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I know you've got a busy schedule. So.
Can I also thank the Emirates, the airlines, and then of course the Emirates Literature Festival, and everybody who has hosted us here in Dubai has been amazing. The staff has been amazing, and I want to thank my publisher, of course, Mira Books, division of HarperCollins, and all the staff there has been, so wonderful and supportive of what I am writing and what a lot of our diverse author list has been writing.
Well, thank you again, and I'll see you next year, okay?
Okay.
It's done, all right?
It's done.
It's sorted, okay? Emirates, sorted out. That's okay. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Thanks for all of your time over the last couple of days, and thanks for your time this morning.
You're so welcome. Thank you.